My name is Kat, and welcome back to Simple Music Theory, specifically right now, Simple Music Theory for guitar. In the last video, we talked about the 12 notes of Western music, and today, finally, we're gonna put those 12 notes onto the guitar. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely go and watch it so that you have some familiarity with the 12 notes and you understand what we're talking about today. But let's not waste any more time. I want to accomplish two things with this video. First, because this is the first video where we're really spending the whole time actually on the instrument, I want to go over some basic guitar vocabulary, just so we're all on the same page. And second, by the end of this video, you are going to be able to name every single note on this neck. Every single one of these rectangles will have an identity in your mind. Every single fret will be given a title. That is very exciting, and that is absolutely the first and most crucial step in beginning to understand music theory on the guitar. So if you can't already tell, I'm very excited for you to learn this. Let's start with some vocabulary, and then we'll slap those suckers onto the neck of the guitar. If you've already played guitar for a few weeks, or months, or years, then you are most likely familiar with most, if not all, of this vocabulary, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This is the body of the guitar. This is the headstock with the tuning pegs where we tune our strings. This, by the way, is a tuner. If you don't have one, 10 out of 10 would recommend. This is the neck of the guitar. The spaces in between these metal lines are called the frets, and that's what we push down on to play notes on the guitar. And these dots, your guitar might not have exactly the same dots as mine, but it most likely has at least most of them. And on my guitar, the frets that are marked by the dots are the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, the 12th, the 15th, and the 17th. And most likely, even if your guitar doesn't have these markings, it will have something on the 12th fret. We're going to find out why when we start putting notes on the guitar. But your 12th fret will have the most ornate pattern, either 2 dots or something a little bit more exciting. One thing I definitely want to highlight, because it can be a little bit confusing at the beginning, especially at the very beginning, is directions on the guitar. So let's say we're playing a note and I tell you to move up. You might think, especially depending on what angle you're holding your guitar at, you might think, oh, this is tilted up, so I want to go this way. No, 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 no. Up and down in terms of movement always refer to pitch. So if you're here and I ask you to go up, you're always moving towards the body because that is the direction that causes the pitch to go up. Anytime we say up, think pitch. So if you're on this fret and I say go up, you're moving towards the body. Likewise, this way is down because, again, it refers to pitch. If you're playing a certain note on a certain fret and I say to go down, you're moving towards the headstock. Towards the body, up, because the pitch goes up. Towards the headstock, down, because the pitch goes down. Also, when we're talking about strings, you'll notice the strings have a lower pitch at the beginning, and as you go this way, the pitch gets higher. This can be really confusing if you've never thought about it before, if you're just a few weeks into playing. Up refers to pitch. So let's say we're playing the lowest string, and I tell you to move up a string. Directionally, technically, you're moving down, but remember, up always refers to pitch. So you would play the next string. That's technically down, but the pitch is higher. So if you say move up a string, then you're moving directionally down. And let's say you're playing the highest string, and I say to move down a string, you're moving this way, towards the ceiling. This way, towards the floor, that's up, because we're talking about pitch, and the strings get higher. This way, towards the ceiling, is down, because the strings get lower. I hope that was a familiar concept to you, and I hope that was not confusing. I just wanted to say that because especially if you're a very early guitar player, that can be really confusing because you're like, I thought this meant up. But again, we're talking about pitch. The most important piece of vocabulary that I really want you to remember from this little vocabulary session, because it will be coming up in the next video and likely in all future videos, is the concept of a half step. All a half step is the distance between any two adjacent frets. So let's say you're playing the 3rd fret on the lowest string. If you then play the 4th fret on the lowest string, you just moved up half a step. If you're playing an open string, and open just means you're not pushing down on a fret, and you then play the 1st fret, the distance between the open string and the 1st fret is a half step. The other piece of vocabulary, I'm really going to blow your mind right now, brace yourself, is a whole step. And all a whole step is 2 half steps. You got it. Let's say we're on the 5th fret of the lowest string. If I say go up a whole step, you go to the 7th fret, because it's a half step between the 5th and the 6th, and then it's another half step between the 6th and the 7th. So the distance between the 5th fret and the 7th fret is a whole step. If you're learning with other resources, if you're watching other videos, reading books, I want to let you know that the distance of a half step might also be called a semitone. So they might call the distance between 2 adjacent frets a semitone, and they might call the distance of a whole step either just a tone or a whole tone. I won't be using that language because half step and whole step is what I was taught and it's what I'm most comfortable with, but I just want to let you know that those terms are identical if you happen to come across them somewhere else. I think that was enough vocabulary review, and I think we are finally ready to start putting notes on the neck of the guitar. And the first step to putting notes on the neck is knowing the names of the open strings. And again, open just means you're playing the strings without pressing down on a fret. So that lovely sound right there was the sound of all the open strings being played. The names of the open strings is one of those things you do just absolutely have to memorize. However, I have some amazing acronyms for you that will make this very easy. The first acronym is the PG acronym. Honestly, it's a little bit boring. I don't recommend you use it, but I used it before with younger students who weren't ready for the real acronym I suggest you remember. The PG acronym is Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. Because the names of the open strings are E, A, D, G, B, E. Now let me tell you the acronym that I use, that I still think about sometimes to this day, that my guitar teacher also taught me in my very first lesson with him when I was probably too young to be using this acronym, but that's okay. It helped me remember, which is exactly what acronyms are supposed to do. The real, not PG acronym that I suggest you use is Elvis ate drugs, goodbye Elvis. E, A, D, G, B, E. Go ahead. Try to forget it. You can't. Another note for when you're watching other videos, reading books, accessing other resources, there are some people who refer to the strings by their numbers instead of their note names. And if that's the case, then the lowest string we call the 6th string, and then it just goes up to 1, or down to 1, I guess you should say, since we're counting. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the highest string is the 1st string, and the lowest string is the 6th string. However, from this point forward, every single time I refer to a string in these lessons, I will be referring to it by its note name. There are advantages to using the numbers. The first is maybe that's what they learned. Part of the reason I'm using letters is because it's just what I learned. The second reason that's a little bit less arbitrary that you might prefer to use numbers is because there is such a thing as alternate tuning. So what we're learning right now is standard tuning. If you go to a guitar shop and you pick up a guitar, the guitars will most likely be in standard tuning. However, there are alternate tunings. And I do plan on making a video about that, but that's definitely a bonus topic for later. So when you use numbers, then you're not incorrect if you're playing a guitar that is in a non-standard tuning. However, I think the value of really ingraining these string names in your mind is worth it. I will be intentionally using the letter names from now on because as we're about to learn, I'm going to give you a way to figure out what all the notes on the neck of the guitar are. And even if you go no further, even if you don't watch any more videos and you're like, nah, that's enough music theory for me, if you can remember the names of the open strings, which is the one thing you can't just figure out, that's the one thing you have to know the names of. If you know the names of the open strings, you've already learned enough, and after watching this video, you will have already learned enough to be able to find all the notes on the neck of the guitar. So if nothing else, if you learn nothing else, I really want you to ingrain the names of these strings in your mind, because that will make every single other thing we do a lot easier, and that is the one thing you can't figure out. Everything else we're learning, I'm teaching you a method, not like a memorization tactic, so you'll be able to use this method. The names of the open strings you just have to memorize, but that's why I am also going to give you a lot of practice getting that association a lot faster in these videos. We know the names of the open strings now. How do we put those notes that we talked about in the last video onto the neck? This is when that little tool I showed you last time is so useful. Like I said before, it is imperative that you keep in your mind what notes have sharps and flats between them and what notes do not. So as a refresher, B and C, there's no sharp and flat in between those two notes. E and F, there's no sharp and flat in between those two notes. All the other notes have a note that we can call either a sharp or a flat in between them. We know the names of the open strings. All we do now is think about that pattern, think about the order of notes and which notes have a sharp and flat in between them, which notes don't. And we are going to go up by half steps on the neck of the guitar, labeling every note. And we're going to start with the low E string. Think about that pattern. We're going to start with the open string, E. Now remember, there's no note called either sharp or a flat after E. So when we press down on the first fret, that's just F. Remember, there is a note we can call a sharp or a flat in between F and G. So when we press down on the second fret, that's the note we can call either F sharp or G flat. And right now I want you practicing both so you get used to it. We go up another half step to the third fret of the low E string. And remember, what note is above G flat? It's G. We go up another half step. Okay, there's no slash in between G and A, so we know there's a note we can call either G sharp or A flat. Let's go up another half step. What note is above A flat? It's A. So right now we're on the fifth note of the low E string, and we know it's A. Now, the next note, okay, there's no slash. We know there's a sharp or a flat in between there. It's above A, so we can call it A sharp or B flat. Two names, same note, we're practicing them both. We go up another half step to the seventh fret, and we know that's the note we call B. We go up another half step, and remember there is a slash there. There's no note called sharp or flat between B and C, so the eighth fret of the low E string is just C. We go up another half step, and that's the note we can call either C sharp or D flat. Another half step. Now we're on the 10th fret of the low E string, and we have the note we can call D. Not the note we can call, it just is D. Okay, let's go to the 11th fret, and the note above D we can call D sharp or E flat. And now we're playing the 12th fret, and what's the note above E flat? It is E. And what do you notice? The 12th fret is one octave higher than the open string. That is why your 12th fret is the most ornately decorated. That's why the 12th fret is such an important fret that's going to keep coming up again and again, because we just went through 12 notes. So it makes sense that on the 12th fret, it'll be the same note, but an octave higher as the open string. And now what's really cool, we're not going to do this in the video, but if you want to pause it and keep going, I encourage you to do so. If we were to keep going past the 12th fret, the pattern would just repeat, because what comes after E? F still comes after E. And then the note that's we call either F sharp or G flat, and then the note G. And that is exactly the same as when we started down here. Our first fret was F, our second fret was F sharp or G flat, and our third fret was G. So by practicing up to the 12th fret, you also learned how to find every single note that's also above the 12th fret. That is pretty cool. Okay, everyone, I went very slowly on that string and I did a lot of talking because it was the first time we were doing it. I wanted to support you and make sure you understood why each fret was what it was. We're going to do the other 5 strings together, but I promise you that I'm going to be going a little bit faster. With each successive string, I will talk less and less and give less advice. And when I get to the last string, the high E string, I'm going to say nothing. I want you to be saying the notes aloud every time to really ingrain it and to help, connect your mind, connect your fingers. But on the last string, I will be silent. I want you to try it by yourself, and you can look at the screen to check if you're doing it correctly. But let's do the A string together. So the open string is A. Remember to think about that pattern. Okay, the next note is a sharp or a flat. So we have A sharp or B flat. B. Remember, there's no sharp or flat between B and C. C. C sharp or D flat. D. D sharp or E flat. E. Remember, there's no sharp or flat between E and F. F. Okay, we're getting to the 9th fret. F sharp or G flat. G. We're on the 11th fret. G sharp or A flat. A. Okay, let's go to the next string. This is D. First fret, D sharp or E flat. E. F. F sharp or G flat. G. G sharp or A flat. A. A sharp or B flat. B. C. C sharp or D flat. And the 12th fret, 1 octave higher, it's D again. Next string, G. G sharp or A flat. A sharp or B flat. B. C. C sharp or D flat. D. D sharp or E flat. E. F. F sharp or G flat. G on the 12th fret. Next string, B. C. C sharp or D flat. D. D sharp or E flat. E. F. F sharp or G flat. G. G sharp or A flat. A sharp or B flat. B. Okay, the next string is the high E. I'm not going to say anything. I'll play so you can play along with me. I want you to say the notes, and I'll have them on the screen in case you want to check yourself. Hint, these 2 strings have the same name, both E. We've done this string before. Okay, open string. We just put a name to every single fret on the guitar. 6 strings, 12 frets. That's 72 notes, plus the open strings, plus all the space above the 12th frets that we didn't practice together. You just learned the names of a whole lot of frets in standard tuning on the guitar. And now what? Do I expect you to do that every time you go to practice guitar? Absolutely not. No, no, no. I do not want you to fall asleep during your practice sessions. I know that was a lot, and I know that was also probably pretty boring. But you know what? You know why that might have been a little bit boring? Because it became so easy by the 3rd or 4th string, I hope. And if it didn't, then I hope you did it again, and I hope that it became easy eventually. Once you find the repeating pattern, it's a little bit boring to keep doing it over and over again, but that's so good, because if it was boring, that means it's easy for you, and that means you're learning something. Woohoo! I think the biggest takeaway from this video is that you are now able to label every single fret on the neck of the guitar without that much memorization. You have to remember the names of the open strings, but we have a very fun acronym for that, so I don't think that'll be a problem for you. And you have to remember what 2 pairs of notes don't have a sharp or a flat between them, but we have that handy little memory tool, and also with enough repetition, you'll remember it with or without a tool. So those are 2 small things to remember, and that's it. And then you can use the process that we just went through together to either label a note you're already playing or to find a specific note on a string. And that is so awesome, because knowing the names of the notes that you're playing, as you can imagine, is the basis of music theory. Of course, the process is slightly laborious, and part of that is time and practice. Like anything else, the more time you spend with the guitar and the more you practice this skill, the quicker and the easier it'll get. But also, there are some tips and tricks of how to do this a little bit quicker. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about patterns, additional patterns that you can look for and not memorize, but understand and remember to help you do this a little bit faster. And we're also going to talk about specific strategies to practice that are not quite as boring as saying 72 notes out loud, but will still help you to internalize this a little bit more and get it a little bit faster and a little bit easier. But like I said, those patterns are for the next video. This is the end of this video. Let's do our high-tech review. Okay, everyone, we started this video with some important guitar vocabulary. We went over the body and the headstock, and we talked about how when we say up, it's not referring to directionally, it's referring to pitch. So moving towards the body of the guitar is up, and moving towards the headstock of the guitar is down, because pitches get lower towards the headstock and higher towards the body. We also talked about this concept on strings. So let's say we're playing something on a single string, let's say the low E string, and I tell you to move up a string. Directionally, it's towards the floor, but again, we're talking about pitch, so you would move to the next string with a higher pitch. If you're playing something on the D string, and I tell you to move down a string, you would move to the A string because it's lower in pitch. We then talked about the vocabulary half step and whole step. Half step is the distance between any 2 adjacent frets on the same string, and the whole step is just 2 half steps. And I also mentioned that you might hear that also called a semitone and a whole tone, or just a tone. Then we went over the names of the open strings, and I gave you my favorite acronym ever to make it easy to remember. Again, the names of the open strings are E, A, D, G, B, E, and the high E is usually written lowercase just to distinguish it from the low E. And I also reminded you that if you're watching other videos, reading books, you might see them referred to by numbers instead. And in that case, the low E is the 6th string and the high E is the 1st string. After that, we put all these suckers on the neck of the guitar using this little memory tool to help you remember which notes do and do not have notes with sharps or flats after them. We covered a very important piece of music theory in this video, and I feel like you learned a lot. I hope that you feel like you learned a lot too. I hope that if anything we talked about in this video was unclear, or if you have any more questions, you'll leave them in the comments. This is a really, really foundational concept for understanding music theory on the guitar. So if any part of it was unclear, I really hope you'll ask those clarifying questions so I can get back to you and help you out with those. If you enjoyed the video, I hope you like it. And in the next video, we are going to be going over patterns to help you remember the notes on the neck of the guitar a little bit better, and also practice strategies. What specifically I think you should practice to really ingrain these skills so that you don't have to sit down and say 72 notes aloud every time you play guitar. That would not be fun. So if you don't want to miss that video, then please subscribe and please leave a comment if you learned something or if you have any questions. I think that's everything I have to say. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!